welcome to another edition of Just Win Today Live Show. We're live on JustWinToday.com, and I'm joined by my brother, Coach Toby Heeb, where it sounds like somebody might be chopping wood in the background. And then
no, it's not wood getting chopped. That's just a dryer.
Okay, and then
people got to do laundry, you know.
And then we're with Coach Aaron Bidewell of the Hayti Indians tonight. Coach, we appreciate you taking the time to talk a little basketball with us.
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me come on and have a good time with y'all tonight. I'd also like to thank Coach Heeb for letting us come use his gym the other day. Very, very neighborly of him. We hosted the Boot Hill Conference tournament about last week, and so Coach Chance, who used to have good relationships over there, made a call, and Coach Heeb allowed us to use his gym. Just want to tell him thanks again for that.
Hey, like I said, I thought it was awesome because you guys were in there before we had a game, and my guys got there, and I had 4 or 5 sitting in the bleachers watching your guys play. And the first thing they said to me when I walked up was, Coach, they do the same drills we do.
Yeah.
I said, so look there. You know, there's no big secret. It's definitely how you do it. Your guys are getting after it. And I tell you what, the intensity in our practice stepped up the very next day after watching that. We got in our rebounding drills, like what you guys were in when I walked in, and we were short on numbers, so I had to get in there, and I actually done the rebounding drills. And I had strawberries and bruises on my legs, cuts on my arms, but it was awesome because they were actually – you know, they figured out I'm not crazy. You do got to get a little rough and physical and play hard every day. So,
yeah.
You know, I appreciate it just as much as you did.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks again.
And Aaron, I gotta tell this story because, and I've actually never told you this before, but when I started to do this website, Just Win Today, what really gave me the idea to do this is kind of twofold. Number one, when I was in the hospital from my car wreck, I just got so many text messages and so many Facebook messages, you know, like just the support that I got was tremendous from people from a distance. But then also just throughout the years, it seems like, and I remember one day last year, you and I were trading texts back and forth about a 2-2-1 press.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like I actually got a text last night from Seth McBroom at Twin Rivers. And just he asked me a question. We shot about 4 or 5 texts back and forth, no big deal. But I do that a lot. You know, not that I'm not like a guru or a genius or anything like that. But I think everybody knows if you text me about basketball, I will text you back. And so
I was about to say, though, surely they can find better advice.
Yeah, there's definitely better advice out there. But the point being, you know, some of the things that like I might share with you or some of the things I might share with Toby or just different people I talk to.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, how cool would it be if I could broadcast this in a different way to where other coaches could share in the same conversations that I'm having with you or with Brad Botch or with whoever, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, indirectly you kind of you were kind of my inspiration for doing this in the first place.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That may be the best inspiration I've ever given anyone. My wife would definitely say that I don't inspire much. She would say I need to inspire myself more to clean up around the house for sure. You know, mentioning guys like Brad, you know, Brad and I actually, I think more than anything else, you know, doing things like this, you form relationships. One thing my grandfather told me is when you coach, you know, you just form relationships with people, and Brad and I actually were having conversations. They host their tournament, JV tournament over there, and we've gotten to know each other and compete with each other over the years. But you form relationships with people, and Brad actually is about to have a little boy, and we're going to have a little boy also, and my brother is. Well, if it wasn't for us having, Dad told me if it wasn't for us having a boy, the Bidewell name would be done. And as far as, because we're the last of our family's Bidewells. Well, Jordan and I are both having boys. So Brad and I had a conversation over at their tournament. He said the same thing. He said, man, same way with me and the Bosch family. So it's kind of cool the relationships you form in coaching. You know, we all compete and we all want to win, and we're all very competitive with each other during the season. But at the end of the day, it's about the kids and what difference we can make in their lives. And then also the difference that we can make in each other's lives, the relationships we have with each other. It turns out to be a great thing, as far as coaching goes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I always say, like I've got my own circle, and you've got your own circle, and Toby's got his own circle. And how cool is it when we can kind of all share each other's circle,
Yeah,
And I was very fortunate as a young coach to get in the state tournament my second year coaching. And just to give an example of that circle, I met a guy named Paul Sutton. He called me. I didn't even call him. He called me and said, "Hey, I saw you guys won your district. I know this coach over here. I can help you get some tape." But he knew somebody that knew me, and it was just one of those things. And that was 15 years ago. And Paul called me last year about a guy that was applying for a job. And I won't say this coach's name, but somebody from Southeast Missouri. Hey, do you know this guy? Da, da, da. And it's just amazing if you stay in this long enough how you just bump into everybody. It's a very unique profession. And I was actually on the phone with another coach earlier this afternoon. A coach called and asked me some advice about dealing with an assistant coach. And I said, I was giving him advice. There's enough people in the bleachers trying to get us fired. We need to take up for each other,
That's exactly right.
And so, bottom line, we need, we need to help each other. And you just hit it right on the head, Aaron, when you said, of course, we all want to beat each other. But at the same time, we do have to try to help each other at the same time.
Absolutely.
And so I've got to ask you, give me a story about your dad. And for those of the people that are listening that live under a rock and don't know, your dad is Jim Bidewell. And, in my opinion, your dad is on the very short list of 3 or 4 or 5 greatest coaches in the history of Missouri. I mean, in the history of the entire state. There's not been – I would say there hasn't been 5 guys better than your dad. And I would challenge anybody to give me proof that there has been, He's just as good as there is. And your dad, I always tell people, he is a coach's coach. And what I mean by that is he is the embodiment of trying to help other coaches. Yeah. So give me a story about your dad just growing up. What was it like playing for him? And then I know you still talk to him and pick his brain a lot also.
Yeah. Coach, is that me in the background? I don't think we got something else going on. I'm sorry.
To be honest, I don't know what it is. It may be you. It may be Toby with this woodcutter in the background. I don't know.
No, I shut it off. I said laundry's not important apparently.
I didn't think it was. I tried to get in another room to make sure that wasn't me. But I don't think it is. But we had a thing for him last night. As far as they honored him with the court and everything, and all the old players came back, and everybody came back and was talking to him, and they gave me the opportunity to speak. And I remember one time when we were little. Hey, Coach, can I call you right back and make sure that's not me?
Sure, no problem at all.
I'll call you right back.
Okay. And Aaron is going to step out for just a minute. And Toby, that may be you.
There's no way.
Yeah, it's
never me.
And so we're having a little technical difficulty here.
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah. No, it's definitely Toby has been like invaded by something there at the house. But anyway, go ahead and finish with your story about your dad there.
Well, and anyways, and this is probably my favorite, and I didn't tell him until last night. But it's a football coach, Coach McKay, who was our coach for years and years and years, and we were right beside his office was right beside Dad, and so he was my football coach also. So it was in the late '90s. It was the '98 team or the '99 team. I remember because I was a little older, so I was up at the gym, and most of us coaches, we dream about taking the team to the Final Four, and we, if we get there and we know we're going, you know, our total focus is, okay, I got to do whatever it takes to make sure we win, and I got to do whatever it takes to make sure that my team's ready. So it's a one-track, you know, we all get a one-track mind towards that when it comes to playoff basketball, you know. And so I remember being in, you know, thinking, all right, you know, I was his manager then. I was thinking, trying to get everything right for him, you know. And so I remember a kid coming in. Kid was having a lot of trouble with a situation, and all the other kids, all the other players were out getting ready for practice, and him and that kid sat in his office and they talked and prayed for about an hour. I remember, until that situation, and that kid felt comfortable and he was ready to you know, move on and be ready to practice. But honestly, you know, just pretend like he's not my dad right now. He's that's just who he is. I mean, he cares about people a lot more than he did winning. And I honestly feel like that's why God blessed him so much, is because of, you know, we all kidded, all of us, Jordan and myself and Dad also, we have to marry smart ladies because we're not very smart people. And so we're just, you know, we're blessed with wonderful wives and that understand and are very smart. But that being said, you know, at that moment, and I told him last night, I said, I think I learned more from coaching from you from that moment than I ever did any drill you ever taught me, or, you know, late night phone conversations we've had after losses or anything. But I think I learned more about coaching that night or that day, you know, watching him making sure that kid was taken care of. And that was more important than getting that team ready to go to state. And it really, you know, it had a lot of influence on me. And I really want to make sure that I do that in my coaching career also.
Wow, that's just an awesome story. And like I said, that's just who your dad is. And if anybody, you know, knows him, and you just said it, I mean, that's just who he is. I mean, when I started coaching, I'll never forget, your dad gave me some of the best advice that I ever got, and I still give it to other people. I grew up playing at Scott County Central, and of course I played for Coach Cookson, who's another one of those guys that's on the Mount Rushmore of coaches. You know, he's a legend also.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, and he had his way of doing things. And so when I started coaching, that's pretty much was my point of reference, was the way I wanted to build a program. You know, I always give coaches advice, and I say, you only know what you know. You know, you only know how you grew up, and you only know, you know, the way your dad did it. And then, of course, you went and played for Gene Best, and you got to see the way he did things, you know. And so, but anyway, I called your dad early in that year when, you know, we had started the season, we played a couple games, and I called your dad, and I didn't know him at all other than he had coached against me as a player. And there's no way he would have remembered who I was because I wasn't good enough, you know. But I knew your dad just from a distance. And so I called him and I said, you know, hey, Coach, this is David Heeb. You don't know me, blah, blah, blah. And he took probably a good half an hour on the phone with the total stranger to give me this advice. And I never forgot not only what he said, but just the fact that he took the time with me. And so when we started talking, I asked him this question. I said, Coach, how is it that your team is always so good at the end of the season? You know, like the saying that they peak at the right time. Your dad's team always, I can remember when I was in college even, you know, like they would be coming down the stretch and they might be 500-ish, you know, just above average that year. But the bracket would come out for the district, and I don't remember which year it was, but it was like one of those years where they got the 4 seed and the 1 seed didn't like it, you know, because they were on the same side of the bracket. Like, oh my gosh, we got to play Portersville. They're hot right now. And I asked him, I said, Coach, how is it every year? Like, if you've got talent, like when you got the Bookers and the Sykes and those players, you just beat everybody's brains in at the end of the year. But even if you don't have that talent, nobody wants to play you at the end of the year. How is that possible? And he said, David, what we do, he said, you got to remember, people only remember how you finish the season. You know, like you know, when you look back through history and through time, they're going to remember the teams that won at the end.
Right.
And he pointed out at that time there was a group. You had Brett Hale and those guys at Dexter who
Right.
had just went like 25-0 and then lost in the district.
Right.
Whereas Derek Tipler and them were the ones that ended up winning that district, and they won the state tournament. They started the year
Right.
0-7.
Yeah.
So he was like, which one of those teams would you rather be? The team that started 25-0 and got beat. They were a great team, but
Yes.
he said, or would you rather be the team that started out a little slow and then you won the whole thing at the end?
Yeah.
And I was like, what a good way to put it. First of all, but then he gave me this advice. He said he didn't kill him in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
He didn't kill him. He kind of had some time off and some things like that. So we really restructured the way we did things in the month of January.
Yes.
Based off of what your dad, the advice that he gave me, and I did it that way my entire coaching career.
Right.
And
right.
He just gave me this great advice, but not only was it great advice, it was like I said, it was just the fact that he took the time with me. And I remember we would go to the Misha Clinic. You got to go to the rules meeting every year, and your dad and I would sit in the back row together and try to figure out ways to beat Paul Hale's matchup zone. I'll never forget that. He would sit in the back, and so he would call me before Christmas and go, "Hey, what do you think? I got this idea." And then, he would try it, and I always had the benefit of going behind your dad because he played him before I did. So I got to use his plan A and B and figure out which one worked better, and then I would get to try it in January when we played them, and so I'll never forget that. But that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah, he tried to put that matchup zone in a couple years, but honestly, we kept messing it up. So he just went back and made us guard man the rest of the year, and he'd always try to. He told me that too. He said, "Man, later in my career, he said I always tried to want a zone press." And he said I'd get in there and he said I would just try to work with it and decide, hey, I'm gonna sell out. And then all of a sudden he'd get frustrated a game or two and say, "Oh, forget it. We're just going back. We're gonna go full court man it." Yeah. I was like, well, that works out great. That means you're going to try to run us more in practice to get us in shape so we can do it, I guess. But talking about, I know everybody's got their own Ronnie Cookson story, and so if you got time, I'd like to share mine.
Yeah,
when we had.
Hey, Coach, hold on one second. I'm going to see if I can get Toby to call in
yes,
here.
Sir. Yes, sir.
And you go ahead and talk, but if he calls in, we'll just pause it and come right back to it. So go ahead with your Coach Cookson story.
No problem. We, it was that time I was under Vaughn, and I was his assistant, and we had some great battles, with Kennett, and you were at Crothersville at the time, and it was
okay, Coach, he's calling. Great. Give me 1 second here.
Yes, sir.
All right, Tobe, you totally this is the beauty of All right, is everybody here now?
I am.
Okay. Tobe, are you here? This is okay, here we go. All right, now we should be. This is the beauty of live radio or whatever this is. So, all right, Toby, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Coach, let me explain to you what basically happened. Toby butchered this so bad, I put him on the bench, and now I put him back in the game.
That's wrong. It's bad coaching, probably.
I guarantee it was.
I guarantee it was. So, Coach, go ahead with your story about Coach Cookson there.
But anyways, it was during that time frame, and I was under Vaughn, and just honestly, that's another thing you mentioned, Dad, and I learned as much as I could from him, and under Coach Best, you got to learn there, or you're not gonna make it, and I did, and I listened to everything he said. I just soaked it up like he was a second father, and also, Coach Bond really, the 2 years I was under him, a lot of coaches, try to treat their assistants certain ways, but honestly, he really treated me good, and he knew what my ultimate goal was, personal goal, I should say. At the time, I was, young and very immature, and he really took me under his wing and really helped me along and teach me how to do things, and let me run, a JV program that I didn't deserve to run at the time. I wasn't ready to run, but anyways, at that time frame, you were at Crothersville. We had some great battles.
Yes,
you know,
we did.
In conference and districts, and we were all blessed with great players, from the Garmins to the Fondas to the Crothers, and so we all had, you know, great players at that time. But that being said, that was the group that we had, and we were going over to Scott County, and Bubba was there at the time, and I remember Kansas was going to be there, and Danny Manning was recruiting, and Arkansas was there at the time, and Mizzou was there at the time. Well, I had made up my mind that I was going to go talk to Coach Cookson. You know, I was just green as can be, young coach, and I had made up my mind that I'm going to go over there, and I had my little notepad in my hand, and I was so excited, and I said, Dad, I'm fixing to go talk to him tonight. Of course, Coach Bond likes to get to the game super early, and I was excited. You know, I said, all right, I'm going to go talk to Coach Cookson. I'm going to introduce myself, and hopefully he gives me all this advice. Well, yeah, and so you know how this is going to turn out.
Oh, yeah.
So anyways, I go over there with my little notepad, and I catch him. He was in the far left corner. I don't know if that's where he always sits or what.
Probably smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's where he was. And I go up and I say, Coach, I said, I'm Aaron Bidewell. Pleasure to meet you. And I said, can I sit down and talk to you for a second? And he said, yeah. He said, first of all, he asked how Dad was doing, asked how Mom was doing. You know, that they were friends over the years. And anyways, and so I pulled out that little notepad, and he gets to talking to me, and we're there. I kid y'all not, we're there 45 minutes. I looked at the clock. We were 45 minutes before the game started, and he gets to talking about fishing in Kentucky, and it lasted for 30 minutes. And here I am. I'm not going to be disrespectful to Coach Cookson. I'm not going to change the subject on him. But the whole time I'm thinking, man, Coach, I really want to talk about press and how you beat the press and what did you do in practice and this and that. And he gets talking about fishing in Kentucky for a good 45 minutes. And I kid y'all not, by the end of it, Coach Bond looked at me and was like, hey, you going to go talk to your JV? And I was like, well, yes, sir. And so I went over there and I said, hey, man, he didn't give me no info at all. so I went in the locker room and I got out of there and I called Dad that night. And Dad was just laughing. He said, yeah. He said, I knew when you said that you're probably not going to get much out of him. He said, but he was the nicest guy, but he wanted to talk about fishing and where we fish at on Black River, and that was a good night for him. And that's what he wanted to talk about.
I bet that fishing in Kentucky was more in depth than practice or anything like that. You know?
Yeah.
Well,
it's more or less just roll it out and go play hard.
Let me tell you something. I played for Coach Cookson, and I say this with respect. You know, like and Toby can tell you the same thing. From 7th grade to 12th grade, the practice plan never changed. It was right-hand layups, left-hand layups, down the middle, tip on the backboard, 3-on-2, 3-on-3, shoot some free throws, let's scrimmage. That was the practice plan. And his whole thing was, if it's not working, we're not playing hard enough. Or if it's not working, he was a genius at shot selection. And I've talked about that on here before. He was a genius at getting everybody to understand a good shot and a bad shot, and what's a good shot for you is not a good shot for me, etc. He's the best I've ever seen at that. And then he's also was the best I've ever seen at just crawling inside a guy's head, kind of the way you were talking about your dad sat down and prayed with somebody. Coach Cookson would do it a different way, but he was a master at the one-on-one.
It's way different than praying.
Yeah, and so, but it's funny
you were praying, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so when we had a coaching clinic there at Scott County Central years ago, and we called it the Hall of Fame Coaches Clinic. It's when I was coaching there, and we had Joby Holland was my superintendent. Joby had some certain connections, and Lennis McFerrin had come there to be the principal. So we thought, man, we've got Cookson right here, we've got Lennis right here. We got on the phone. We got Jim Whitby out of O'Brien County, Tennessee, who's a legend over in that part of Tennessee. We got Mitch Wilkins to come from, he was at Troy forever, but now he's over in Tennessee also. But he's won over 600 games in Missouri. We got your dad, and we got Paul Hale. So we had 6 coaches come that were all in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And they all came and spoke.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was the funniest thing. The best moment I've ever seen at a clinic was when your dad went first. he went before Paul Hale. I'm not saying he went first, but he went before Paul. So
Yeah.
then Paul comes up, and of course he's going to talk about his 2-2-1 press back in his matchup zone, and it really was a matchup press into a matchup zone. And so Paul's up there, and your dad stayed. I'll never forget this. He stayed, and he took notes. And here he's one of the speakers. He's already in the Hall of Fame. He's already won more than the rest of us will put together. And he stayed and took notes. So he starts asking Paul questions. He raised his hand. And he's like, well, what would you do if you did this? And Paul answered, and, then he said, well, what if I put somebody over here? And so your dad finally got up, and he went down. We had one of those big overhead projectors, and, they were both. And so your dad and Paul Hale, it was almost like watching two guys duel X's and O's up there in front of everybody. And so it was absolutely the best thing I've ever seen at a coaching clinic, because you got two guys that have won between the two of them. I mean, Paul Hale's as good as they come just a phenomenal coach. And so you got those two guys going at it, and it was just amazing to watch. And then Coach Cookson is the last speaker, to come on. And it's like you said, after listening to all these other guys just X and O and, into detail and everything, and they're asking Coach Cookson these questions, and he's just like, well, it's just a press, his approach to things was so much more simple. But in a way, and I actually said this before, it's like there's a simple genius to it, in the way that he did things. And so, kind of as that pertains to your kids at Hayti, this is a great topic. You and I have talked basketball from the time that you got out of school at Three Rivers. Like we've been talking basketball forever and ever. And with Hayti, you have football. So your guys come in, and usually you guys are good at football. So you may get your kids a little later. You may get a different kind of an athlete because you do have football players. That there's a plus to that because your kids are going to be stronger and more physical. But there's a downside to that because you don't have as much time with them as say Toby might have with his kids because they don't have football. So how have you found a balance for that at Hayti?
Well, I honestly think, and I know, it sounds like, that I'm trying to just talk, but one of the things that's been wonderful is our football coach, Dominique Robinson, and I, as far as discipline and as far as, wanting to do things the right way, he has been phenomenal. He comes in and, this is his first year being the head coach. And we like to use the term, there's nowhere to hide. So, for instance, there's no kid that's going to come to me and say, Coach Robinson's too hard on me. I'm just going to concentrate on basketball. Well, and I feel like that's a quitter's mentality right away, or vice versa. And he's super supportive also. If a kid tries to come in and say, Coach Bidewell, he's being too hard on me, he's got my back as well. And I know he's going to say, hey, no. You better get out there and do what you're supposed to do. And so having the quote that we use together, there's nowhere to hide, that's the relationship that we're able to have, and we're good friends off the floor and the court also. So that relationship, first of all, helps. And being said, I've had two wonderful assistants, coming in last year, and in the years before too, with Alandis, he taught me so much, about how to deal with people. He's just a wonderful guy.
He's a great guy, and your assistant there that was at South Pemscott with you, he's a great man.
Class act, and but being around Casey Gilmore and Bart Chance, it just gives a wonderful vibe to the day as we come in, and we like being around each other, and we have fun together. But going into that's the first part is
okay. Let me pause you right there though, because I gotta stop you, and I gotta say, you're talking real good about Bart Chance, and it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do because we're on the air. But let's cut through it and give me your best. First of all, Bart Chance is a good friend of mine. I've known Bart forever.
Yeah.
But you talk about a character. Now, give me a good Bart Chance story.
Okay. How about one from 2 days ago? So we're heading over to a Bernie JV tournament, and of course he has Cookshin relations also.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of relationships. So, anyways, we're going over there, and you know, anytime you play Bernie, you're in for, first of all, a well coached team who do things the right way, and so you better come to play. Well, you know, Bart and I he drives the bus, and so he's leaning back to me and saying, you know, or we're talking about what we should do. Well, anyways, the whole time Casey and I are noticing Bart's in the middle of the road. So anyways, we get to driving, and so I told Casey, I said, it ain't gonna matter what we run. If Bart don't start driving on the right side of the road, we're not gonna get to this game anyway. So we're gonna have to forfeit this game because we're gonna be in the ditch somewhere. But no, hey, don't put that live. Actually, school board members might be listening to this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding if you are listening now. But no, he has a good time. Honestly, he comes in there, and you know, I'm a charismatic fool sometimes in practice. And he'll just look over at me and say, "Man, just settle down. You know that it's November. You know." And I was thinking, "Yeah, you're right. You know," or December. And he is a very calming.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Exactly.
He is, and honestly, Casey and I, we just have a good time coaching together. You know, and you know, the guy that came before, Dustin, laid a wonderful foundation. You know, he's a wonderful coach as well that got into administration, you know. So it's just a great place to work. You know, it's great atmosphere, great administration. But going back to your question about football, you know, it's just what I was raised around, you know.
Absolutely.
And I can see, and I'm not just saying this, I see a lot of Coach McKay in Dominique, you know, when I see, you know, because I judge a lot of football coaches based on Coach McKay, who is also, you know, in the Hall of Fame. But I see a lot of him in him when you know, how he deals with kids, how he deals with relationships. There's, you know, I like the fact that he comes in every day working, because we do have athletes and we're blessed with guys that are athletic. But you know, we call it, you know, Coach D-Rob, he comes in to work. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're Ivory Winters, who is an All-State two-time player. You're going to get treated the same as everybody else, and you better get ready to work, you know. And you know, I think that's why, you know, I think we're heading in the right direction, because you know, he does a phenomenal job with the football team, as well as his staff. You know, they've got a great football staff, and they do a good job. So it just translates right over. And you know, if you know, I know you've had, you know, you've been at Crothersville, and you know, being on the same page with, you know, your football coaches is wonderful.
That's so true. As a matter of fact, I just talked to the guy that was the coach at Crothersville. Our football coach was Nathan Morgan.
Yeah,
and Nathan and I, we actually traded back and forth this week, a couple texts and emails. I actually wrote him a letter of reference for a job where I said that, and exactly in there, like, Nathan made coaching basketball so easy as the football coach. You know, he helped me tremendously. He taught guys into playing basketball. Yeah. You know, he helped me, and vice versa. I would talk guys into playing for him, and I just don't, you know, I know situations where it has not been like that between the football and the basketball, and it seems like somebody always loses because there's a kid that should be playing one or the other that's not. And you know, so now stylistically, how has that changed your approach? I mean, like, I'll give an example of a guy like Greg Hollifield. Greg is an all man-to-man guy. He's man-to-man to his core. He gets to a football place and says, you know, I don't have time to do that. Let's go 2-2-1 so we can spend more time on other things. So has that changed anything for you?
It actually, you know, it's funny you said that and you used him. I called Will and kind of talked to him about his boy, and I just said, you know, and got on the phone with him, texted him and everything. I said, well, you know, what with you guys, you know, is this something? And so anyways, it was, you know, Bart and I discussed, of course, especially with Bart being having Scott County roots, you know, as far as relationships. You know, it's not where he played, but having relationships there. But honestly, you know, we got to be who we are. And that being said, especially small schools, we can't go away from what we believe in, what we've been taught, what we know. And that doesn't mean we stop learning. You got to have a constant Bill Belichick approach to things. And if you ever feel like you've arrived, that's when you're going to get beat. And you've also got to keep learning. You use that story of Pop and Coach Hale, how they went up there and how he was, learning that, even, being in the Hall of Fame at that time. We all have to have that mentality, of, if I'm not going to constantly say this is who I am and this is who we are, and nothing ever is going to change, because your kids do change, and then
they do,
and then you get beat, when you stop learning.
And your dad is a perfect example of a guy like that to me, because if you look at the greats, like a Cookson 1-2-2 back in a 2-3 to the day he died, like that's just the way it is. With Lennis was 95% man to man. And, just that pressure man where they'd slip in some 1-3-1. With Hale, that was the matchup zone. Your dad is the one, outlier in that group, in that there was a time where they were man to man. That I can remember the really, really good teams he had where it was the 1-3-1 trap. And, he has mixed and matched his style a little bit more than say the other ones who's just said, hey, we're going to do this for the next 20 years, He
one year he got really into he was a huge Rams fan, and he loved, and we still mess with him every now and then about this. He loved Mike Martz, and he got into all kind of different offenses. Remember they were running, Gray Show and Turf at the time. They were running a different formation, different sets. Well, he got into that with basketball one year.
Oh my goodness.
So we got to talk to him and said, man, you need to stop doing that. Let's just go back to Mickey Mouse and try to win some games.
So that's but your dad, he was a constant tinkerer with the X's and O's. Yeah. And you mentioned Mickey Mouse, and I have to tell this story. For those of you that don't know what Mickey Mouse is the famous Portageville delay game. Maybe the greatest delay game in the history of delay games. And your dad told me a story about that. I said, because we'd sit in the back, while we're X's and O's, and I say, draw me Mickey Mouse. Show me how it goes again. This every year. He'd draw it for me. And I asked him one year, I said, where did you come up with this? And he said, well, I saw it, at a clinic or somewhere. He saw it somewhere, and it was just a regular offense. He said, so we went into the season, and I'm thinking, man, this is a great offense. We're going to run this offense. And he goes, and the way teams guarded it, they just kind of sagged off of it, and so we'd end up running it for like a minute or two at a time. Yeah. And so we said, man, heck with that thing. We don't ever score. But then he said we come back to it later and said, maybe that would be a great delay game. And so that's how Mickey Mouse was born. And I'll never forget, your dad would stand up and he'd wave his hands over there by his ears like Mickey Mouse, And it was demoralizing to be sitting over there getting beat by a play called Mickey Mouse. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my first year at Crothersville. It might have been my first or second year. I don't remember. But it was the last year your dad coached. And we went and played them at Portageville on a Friday night, and they beat us in a close ball game. Beat us by less than 10. It ended up being a close game. And we played them like a week later in the Boot Hill Conference Tournament. We played in the semifinals, and we played about as well as we could possibly play. And this was LB and Volan and that group of kids, the Fonda boys and Belton McWilliams and all those kids. And so we beat them by about 15, 16 points. And after the game was over, Al Jones, who we both know, was a reporter. And Al came up to me and asked a question for the paper, like, man, how did you make this adjustment? How did you in less than a week's time make these adjustments to beat, Coach Bidewell? Like kind of like he phrased it like I had out-coached your dad. And I had to laugh, like, Al, are you being serious right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, my guys just played lights out. Like, we just played great. Nobody's ever out-coached Jim Bidewell. That just hadn't happened. And so, So as we kind of close
unless
up,
Al's going to bring one of his superstar teams that he would bring during the summer.
Thank you. Yeah, which was about half Portersville kids on it.
Yeah.
You know,
Al's winning percentage is higher than Ronnie's and Dad's and Paul's put together.
It is. It is.
Winning percentage in Southeast Missouri.
Yes, it is. And so there is a timer on this thing. We got less than 5 minutes here. So tell me a little bit about your team and kind of what your outlook is for the rest of your season.
Well, we seeded today in Bloomfield, and it's just a great bracket. I mean, it's just, we looked it over, and there's no easy wins. We feel like throughout the whole thing, it's just a great tournament. Of course, Dexter's the defending champs, and they well deserved for sure, and they're the 1 seed. And you got a lot of other great teams in there. We're pleased to be where we're at. We played a tough O'Brien County team the other night and lost by 2, and felt like it was, we finally turned the corner as far as playing good. They're a really, really tough opponent out of Tennessee. Love this group as far as their practice effort. They're one of our favorite groups that we've ever had as far as they like to be in the gym. As Coach saw the other day over at North Tim, that's who they are just about every day. They come to practice. They're also those kids. You've been a part of groups where you can have a good hard 2-hour practice and feel like, man, they're done for. Well, they'll stay and shoot afterwards. So we all know kids are we do our best as coaches, but kids make the team for sure. And this is one of those teams that, we are definitely blessed, and good Lord's blessed us to have and be a part of, just be in their lives. They're fun to be a part of as far as kids, throughout the day they come through smiling, and, they enjoy being at school. And so we just like this group a lot. And we're, as far as, where we stand at wins and losses, we'll see when it's all over with. The district is so unbelievably tough this year. But as far as our team wise, I really like this group, and I'm very happy to be around them.
Well, and I believe this. I said this a couple years ago when you first got started. I am the president of the Aaron Bidewell fan club. I just think you're a tremendous coach, and you've proved me right. So thank you for that. And I think that you're at a place where the sky's the limit. The talent that's there, the support, the administration that you've got right now with Jackie and Melanie and all the people that you've got to work with. I think we're going to look back 5-10 years from now and say, wow, what a run Hayti had. And I really believe that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I thank you guys for what you're doing. This is awesome, just to get to hear all the coaches and like you said, get to listen to the different things and their opinions and take notes from them on how they do things. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Coach, and again, thank you for that. And like we tell everybody, if you like it, just share it, because there's somebody else that needs to hear it. So
absolutely.
Best of luck, and we will do this again.
Hey, y'all have a great night, and God bless.
Okay, thanks, Aaron.
See y'all.
And so that was Coach Aaron Bidewell, the Hayti Indians, one of the great young coaches in that part of the state. And so, Tobas, we've got about a minute to go here. Your thoughts on tonight?
I thought Coach Bidewell had a lot of great things to say, and really interesting listening to the stories and just young coaches, kind of how he approached being a young coach and talked about his early experiences was really interesting for me, and probably anybody else getting started out there. Just talking about his group, like he said, I got to see him practice for about 30-45 minutes the other day, and those guys go after it. They respond to coaching very well, and it's like I opened it up today. My kids watched their guys practice and said they do a lot of the same stuff we do.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And that's what I kept telling my guys,
Yeah.
Before that practice, it was ironic. I said, we can come in here and do the Los Angeles Lakers practice, Duke Blue Devils, Team USA, it doesn't matter.
That's
if
right.
you don't go at it the right way, you're not going to get anything out of it.
That's right.
So, seeing their guys
told
practice and play hard, they got after it.
Buzzer's going to go off on us here, so